Hi, my name's Neil, and today we're going through a walk-around inspection and orientation of a Diamond Mowers traditional triple flail mower. Right up front here we have the hydraulic tank. Check that the oil level is in the middle of the sight glass when the engine is not running and the oil is cold. Up top here we have the filter housing and the in-tank filter. The filter should be changed after the first 50 hours and then every 500 hours after that, along with the hydraulic fluid. Tank holds about 40 gallons of ISO 46 hydraulic fluid. Attached to the filter housing here is the filter restriction gauge. The filter should be replaced prior to that 500 hours if the gauge shows in the red. Make sure the ball valve near the bottom of the tank is fully open and has a zip tie holding it open. The zip tie will prevent any sort of debris from reaching up and accidentally closing the valve and starving the pump. Here you can see some of the bolts attaching the mainframe to the tractor. These bolts are torqued and marked. Check these bolts every day to make sure that they haven't turned or otherwise come loose. If you do find one that's come loose, remove it completely, reapply red Loctite, reinstall and retorque that bolt. Up front here we have the Tandem Pump. It's attached directly to the engine with a drive shaft and a slide coupler. Check for loose bolts daily. Check the slide coupler for free play and grease every day with number 2 lithium-based grease until grease purges from either end. If you have a U-joint style coupler, grease it once a week until purge. Above the pump is the hydraulic cooler. It's designed to prevent the oil from overheating. The electric fan will pull air through this way, but as grass and other material builds up on that surface, the fan will automatically reverse that airflow to blow the material off. The pump unloading valves are electrically controlled valves that turn the mowers on and off. Because the pump is always turning whenever the engine is running, that hydraulic fluid has to go somewhere. When the control switches in the cab are in the off position, that flow returns right back to tank. But when the control switches are in the on position, the flow is diverted out toward the attachments. The draft beams will have grease points at each joint and at the end of each cylinder, except for this top pin right here. There are remote fittings with hoses to grease the pivot points that are more difficult to get to. The more accessible points along here have grease fittings right on the pivot. Check your hoses and tubes at the same time for leaks or damage. The motor is held in place with 4 bolts. Inspect the motor bolts daily for looseness and the hoses and connections for leaks or other damage. Diamond uses a bonded double V belt between the motor and the cutter shaft. The self-adjusting tensioner should never need adjustment. However, overloading the cutter head will shorten the life of the belt and the tensioner. Diamond side and rear flails will generally turn opposite the direction of travel to provide a very clean cut, but the direction can be reversed, which will allow faster processing of tall or heavy grass. Grease both ends of the cutter shafts at the end of each day until grease purges from the bearings. If the knives are clanking against the cutter shaft, material is being fed too quickly. Attempting to mow too fast will result in a poor cut, and damage to the flail and other components will occur. Replace the knives when they are worn to half of their original width. When replacing knives, always replace the hardware at the same time. Inspect the ground roller daily for wrapped material and clean as necessary. Change the bearing oil every 500 hours or annually with 75/90 synthetic gear oil. The height of cut is adjusted here by moving the ground roller up or down. Inspect the rubber flap and replace it when it wears out. A worn, torn, or missing flap will not protect from flying debris. The rear flail operates similarly to the side flails, except that instead of being hydraulically driven, it's powered by the tractor's PTO. Grease the PTO shaft weekly and the rest of the drivetrain daily at the same time as the cutter shaft bearings. Change the oil in the gearbox annually with 75/90 synthetic gear oil. The tractor will not start with either mower switch in the on position. This is a safety feature. Pull out on the appropriate mower switch and lift up to engage the mowers. The rear is engaged by the PTO switch right here. The lift and tilt functions of the side decks are controlled by the cable control levers. The 2 inner handles will adjust height, and the 2 outer handles will adjust the tilt. Once the flail has been positioned, Push the handles forward into the float detent and allow them to ride on the ground roller. To stow the side flails, raise the inboard all the way up and tilt the heads in with the outboard cylinders. Once all the way in, lower the heads onto the hook. Move slowly and try not to slam them into the hook as damage can occur over time. To deploy the flails, first lift up on the inboard, let the flail level out, and then float it to the ground. On flat ground, all the control handles can be placed in the float detent to ride on the rollers. On more challenging terrain, the operator may need to manually adjust the height and pitch as they mow. Maintain your tractor by following those recommendations found in the tractor's manual or by contacting your local tractor dealer. For more information on the proper operation and maintenance of your Diamond Mowers traditional triple flail mower, see your operator's manual or contact us online at diamondmowers.com. Diamond Mowers, where you can demand brilliance.